Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to tell you guys all about everything I read in June and my plans, my reading plans that is for the month of July. So today is the 4th of July, which if you live in the United States is Independence Day. So to all of my viewers who are watching from the United States, happy Independence Day to you guys. I hope you guys had fun celebrating however it is that you do that. We definitely ate a lot of barbecue, I drank a lot of beer, and we had some long days that were very fun, spent by the pool with friends, cookouts and barbecues with family. So just now getting to this video, but it was worth it to spend that time celebrating our freedom and just hanging out with family. So I am really excited to show you all this stuff because I read a lot of good books. I read a few kind of in the middle, but I read a lot of like all-timer good books in June. So I do these videos all in one. Like I said, I like to show you what I read the previous month and kind of what I'm planning on doing, or a TBR if you will, for the next month. But I noticed that a lot of people actually split these up into 2 videos, which is nice because they are much shorter. These videos of mine usually tend to be around the 20-minute mark, which in my opinion is a little long, but I am long-winded, so all of my videos kind of fall into that 20 to 25 minute time zone. So I would appreciate some feedback from you guys. If you would appreciate me breaking these into 2 smaller videos in the future, that's something I'm totally willing to try out. So please give me some feedback and let me know what you think. But otherwise, for today, we're gonna stick with the original format. So in the month of June, I have got 9 books in this stack. One of them I actually started, the previous month, which would have been May. I actually started in May, finished in June. I don't know if we count it. We're not keeping score, so I guess it doesn't really matter, but here we go. So there was a channel-wide read-along on Mike's Discord, Mike's book review and his Discord channel. I'm very active there, I'm a moderator, and a bunch of us had planned to read the Shattered Sea trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. I am a Joe Abercrombie First Law super fan, and I have never read the series because it was marketed and sold as YA, which is not always my bag, but I've heard a lot of things from Joe Abercrombie fans saying, I don't know, I thought it was quite good. I didn't really get YA vibes from it. I thought it was pretty good. Don't go into it expecting First Law, but it's a nice little trilogy. So I did read Half a King, which is book 1, and I liked it quite a bit. I can kind of see where the YA stuff comes from in this book because it's not as cussy. There's not all the creative Joe Abercrombie curses that we like so much. It didn't have all of that, and it did deal with younger protagonists, so I can see where they're coming, but I liked this one quite a bit. I did read the second one, which is called Half a World, and I didn't like it as much. It did have kind of a cheesy romance in it that really wasn't my favorite, but it also didn't bother me. Like, it definitely is not the worst romance I've ever seen on page. So I read this one. I did still like it, but not nearly as much as the first one. And then I didn't get to the third one, part of it because I just had other stuff that was higher priority to get to, but also part of it was just because I was just kind of losing interest in it. I will finish that last book because it bothers me to leave a trilogy unfinished. Also because I didn't dislike it enough to totally DNF it, but also because these are pretty small books and they read pretty quick, and so I have no reason not to finish it. So I do think I will finish the Shattered Sea trilogy, just not necessarily probably the next couple months. The next book I want to show you is the one I mentioned where I started it in May, finished in June. I don't really know where to put it, whether it's a May book or a June book, but it is True Believer by Jack Carr. And the reason this one took me so long to read is not because I didn't like it or didn't find it enjoyable, but this is not my genre. This is not my home. This is a military thriller. And it is so well done. I'm very, very invested in the story and the characters, but I kind of squeezed this in when I feel like I need a break from fantasy, because fantasy is my home, that's where I belong, but I'm very happy to have stuff that is outside of my genre, so when I do feel like I need a break, I have something to kind of cleanse the palate. This is book 2 in the Terminal List series, and there are 5 of them so far. I absolutely love the first one, and I liked the second one quite a bit as well. It did take a little while for the story to get going, but even the part that was before the real plot picked up and got going, I found it super enjoyable, and it really lent a lot to the character work and the character building of James Reese. So I really liked that book, and so far I'm 2 books into that series and I am calling it a definite recommend. I was also very pleased to be able to completely wrap up another series. I just love doing that. I love the feeling of accomplishing and finishing something, and something big especially. This is book 3 of the Lycanius trilogy, and yes, it's only 3 books, but they are huge, and this trilogy was really cool, you guys. I have some nitpicks, I have some complaints. It was not a perfect story. It was not completely catered to my personal taste, but it was very impressive what he pulled off in this book. The ending was pretty awesome. It surprised me, and towards the end I was starting to get nervous. I thought, oh my gosh, there's so many loose ends. How is he going to wrap this all up in a satisfying way? And sure enough, just like everyone had promised me, that epilogue just blew my mind and really tied everything up so nicely. So I am glad that I read the Lycanius trilogy, and it is cool, and I recommend it, but not to everybody. This isn't a book that I would just push on everybody and say, you got to break your TBR for this, you have to read it. But if you are an experienced fantasy reader and you have been curious about this, let's chat, because this series definitely has a place. It's just probably not going to go down as an all-time favorite, but I'm super glad I read it. And like I said, I was very impressed by some of the ideas and what he managed to pull off with this trilogy. I do apologize for all the click-clack noises in the background and the distraction of Rosie, but I can't get this girl to sit down, and you're gonna hear her claws, and she's probably gonna wanna sit in my lap here in a bit. She's very attached to me. So Rosie, she's just part of the crew now. She's part of the videos. Something I have been excited to start for a very long time is the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. So I'm very, very excited and happy that I read Jade City in June. I really, really liked this book. It is modern fantasy, kind of an urban setting, and it takes place in a fictional Asian culture, and I just loved it so much. Like, it had like organized crime, gangster vibes, but like I said, in an Asian culture. And it worked. I was super into it. The family dynamics and the politics and the scheming was just really, really well done. I'm very invested in the story. I clicked with most of the characters, and even the ones that weren't my favorite were still written and executed really well. So I am very, very excited to continue the Greenbone Saga. As most of you'll probably know by now, I am reading one Dark Tower book a month as a part of a read-along, and month 6 was book 6, Song of Susanna. And I was pretty worried about this one because it has a reputation of being very divisive amongst the Dark Tower fandom. And while it was not my favorite Dark Tower book that I've read so far, I did like it. And I was super worried about it because Stephen King makes some very risky, very bold choices. And these choices, I absolutely understand why they would not work for everybody, because personal preference goes a long way when it comes to how much you enjoy a book. And he made some choices that are just like, on paper, I was worried that I was not gonna like it. But thankfully, I did enjoy it way more than I had feared. And so I felt afterwards I read it, I was like, okay, phew. I was worried this was going to ruin my whole experience with the Dark Tower, but thankfully, even though it is going to be one of my least favorite of the whole series, if I had to make a prediction, I still enjoyed it quite a bit. Some awesome character moments happened, and even the things that weren't my favorite weren't as prominent as I thought they were going to be, some of those choices that he made. So overall, I'm just really pleased with the Dark Tower, and I'm especially pleased that I didn't hate Song of Susanna like I worried that I would. So for those of you who watch these videos regularly, you know that I read Boy's Life by Robert McCammon last month, or last video. Anyway, I absolutely loved it. And I thought I have to read more Robert McCammon ASAP. Last year, I believe it was at the end of the year, maybe in December or November, Scott, the bald booktuber, read Boy's Life and Swan Song, and he absolutely loved them. So since then, these books have constantly been on my radar, but I had plans, you know, I had read-alongs to get to, I had trilogies I was trying to wrap up, and I just now am starting to work in some of these standalones that I had been looking forward to since last year. And Swan Song is what I chose this year. And let me tell you, Boy's Life was incredible. It's going to be a favorite. I recommend it. It's such a great book. But you guys, Swan Song was absolutely magnificent. And I do want to do a book review on this as soon as possible because I have so much to say about this book. This is a spoiler for this video. It's a spoiler for my book of the year video, but this is definitely my book of the month. And I mean, it's going to be impressive if anything knocks this off of my list for best book of the year. It might just be one of my new favorite books, period. Swan Song is a post-apocalyptic, what happens to the world when the world ends kind of book. And it is often compared to The Stand by Stephen King, and it's a fair comparison because in The Stand, most of the population is wiped out by a super flu, and in the Swan Song, the population is wiped out by nuclear war. And so you're dealing with a lot of the same ideas and themes of what happens when the world ends, and there's so few people left, and some of them want to rebuild and try to make the world a better place, and some of the people unfortunately are always going to be selfish and think about themselves and think only how much can I take for myself. And that will be always an interesting setup for me when it comes to a plot for a book or a movie, because it's the very basics of good versus evil. And it's not a knight in shining armor and a wizard, it's real people. And just like Stephen King writes people so realistically and human nature so believably, I'm finding that Robert McCammon does the same thing. So are the two books identical? No. Do the two men write the exact same way? Absolutely not. You're going to get different things from both of them, but it is a fair comparison. If you like Stephen King, I think you might like some of these Robert McCammon books. If you love The Stand, I genuinely think you're going to like this too. So I don't want to go way too into it because I want to do a book review, but I'm just going to say it. I normally do not push stuff on people and say, you know, burn down your TBR, stop what you're doing, read this book, especially not when it's like a 950-page book. But trust me on this. If this concept sounds good at all to you, stop what you're doing, get it on Kindle, go down to the bookstore, do what you got to do. Get a copy of Swan Song and just read it because I just thought it was perfect. I absolutely loved it. So speaking of the Gush train, I am not finished yet. I read the Warlord Chronicles. So Winter King, Enemy of God, and Excalibur. It is a 3-book trilogy by Bernard Cornwell, and I loved it. So this is technically categorized as historical fiction, but I would have absolutely no issues recommending it to a fantasy fan because this is a twist on the Arthurian legend. So you're getting Arthur, Lancelot, Merlin, you know, the quests and the magical artifacts and all of that stuff is there, but it is done in a historical setting. And it's just such a great twist on the legend itself. Again, I would really like to do a review of this trilogy, so I don't want to go too far into why I liked it so much, but the narrative, the way the story was told, and the questions that it brings up about ancient historical texts and the versions we get today and what they may have derived from was just absolutely intriguing to me. A lot of people will tell you that this first book is kind of slow and hard to get into. For me, I was pretty enamored from the beginning, but I can absolutely agree with and see why people would struggle to kind of get invested in it initially. But to me, the second half of this book, all the way through the next two, were just about perfect. I absolutely loved them. And I am kind of cheating because what I did was I read Winter King, then I read Swan Song, and I went straight into Enemy of God, which is book 2. And then Excalibur was actually the first book I read in July. So we're now pouring over into my July. But I'm fine with doing that because I already told you guys what my book of the month was. It was Swan Song, hands down. But I'm telling you right now, if I had not read Swan Song this month, easily this Warlord Chronicles set would be my favorite thing I read because, again, we're talking all-time favorites. And I love that. Like, how lucky am I to have a month that completely shook up everything I knew about my favorites? But it did. I mean, I've got new favorites this month, and that is pretty lucky. All right, getting into July. So I had originally planned to read Enemy of God and Excalibur, book 2 and 3 of Warlord Chronicles in July. But I didn't expect The Winter King to grab my attention in such a strong way. And so I got through those way faster than I thought I would. And so now I'm looking at my July TBR and it's looking a little flexible. So I'm interested to see what's actually going to play out here. So what I am probably most excited about in July is starting Codex Alera. I love Jim Butcher because I love the Dresden Files. I have read 17, well, I don't know, is there 17 books in the Dresden Files, but does that count the short story collections? I'm not sure. Either way, I have read like a butt ton of Jim Butcher books and I've liked pretty much every single one of them. And so he has a whole nother series that is an epic fantasy series and it's called Codex Alera, and I have been itching to start it for a very long time. Now, I know that I am not to expect it to be similar to Dresden Files at all. I've heard the tone is different, the writing style is different. He writes from different perspectives, whereas, Dresden is told in first person. Apparently, it's just like comparing apples and oranges. And that is actually pretty exciting to me. So I am going to be starting book 1, which is called The Furies of Calderon. I always have to look at these titles because they get kind of jumbled in my head. But I'm going to be reading book 1, The Furies of Calderon, and book 2, Academ's Fury, this month. I would like to read them at the first half of the month, so I imagine tomorrow when I get back to work and things get back to normal, I will start book 1 right away. I've heard that the series is somewhat of a slow burn and it really picks up and comes into its own and gets like super good towards the middle. And I'm okay with that because, like I said, Jim Butcher, even though I know not to expect these things to be comparable or similar, I feel like this author has really earned my trust. And so if I have to get through a couple books that are kind of okay to get to the stuff I've been told is really, really good, then I trust him enough to do that. So I'm just hoping to be pleasantly surprised and look back on books 1 and 2 and go, I don't know what you guys mean. I thought they were pretty good. I'm hoping that's where I land with these because even though I do trust Jim Butcher, no one wants to read a couple of pretty big books that were just okay. So I'm hoping I look back and go, I liked them all. Something else that we will be doing as a group over on Mike's Discord server is this guy right here. We've been planning this for quite a while. And this is a concept by J.J. Abrams and Doug Dorst. And I believe it's called Ship of Theseus. But this right here, okay, guys, this is very interactive. I've never read anything like this. So it is a book, but there are like notes written on it and it comes with all kinds of stuff. And I think it's like a project. There's like clues and you try to figure out what's going on based on the text of the book, plus all of the notes and little tidbits that are left for you in the book. Like it even has like decoding stuff. So I have no idea what this is going to be like. Like clearly I'm not doing this one on audio at all because it has like activities included. So if you have read this and you have any tips for me or anything like here's what to expect, here's how I read it, here's what I wish I did differently. Like I know it sounds like it's just a book. Who needs advice on how to read a book? But this one is throwing me for a loop and I think I will start it pretty quickly because I imagine it's something that I'm going to like keep at my bedside table and just like try to work on it a little bit every day. But I'm very excited, I'm very intrigued because I've never done a book like this. I don't even know if it's called reading a book or if it's just like a murder mystery or an escape room or what. Like I don't even know what to expect, but I am excited for it. This is something that I probably should have brought up in the June segment of this video, but I did start reading Fire and Blood by George R.R. Martin in June. I got to about the 50% mark and decided that I would read the rest of it in July. Honestly, just kind of to savor it and to keep the experience going because I'm having so much fun reading this book, you guys. I'm already familiar with quite a bit of the history because Westeros is my home. Like, this is the fantasy world that I am the most comfortable in. I know the most about it. I'm the most well-versed in the history and the lore of this world. Like, it is home for me. And I don't know why I waited so long to read this book because it is excellent. So I found out that several people, some of my book friends, are going to be reading this together in July. And it's not necessarily a organized read along or anything like that. But when I realized that was happening, I decided to go ahead and put the bookmark in and finish the rest when they're reading it, just because it's just fun to have people to talk to about this stuff. So I am kicking myself that I waited so long to read this, but I'm actually kind of glad that I'm reading it now because, like I said, I have friends reading it, and also we have the new HBO show coming out pretty soon in the next couple of months, and I'm just excited to have all of this super fresh in my mind. The audiobook is excellent, and I am glad that I'm doing it on audio, but my advice is to make sure you have a copy of the book as well, because this book is absolutely packed full with gorgeous illustrations, and so you're gonna want to be able to look at those as well. Of course, this is the 7th month of the year, and so I will be reading the 7th and final book of the Dark Tower, and it is called The Dark Tower by Stephen King. And I can't tell you guys how excited I am to wrap this up. I have enjoyed this series very much, and I just have no idea, even still, what to expect, where it's going, and how the conclusion is going to come about. And so this world, this group of people, this quartet absolutely have my heart, and I am just so excited to wrap it up. But in some ways, I'm sad that it's ending. So I do plan to read book 1, The Gunslinger, again when I finish. I don't know if I'm going to do that directly after, if I'm going to do that in July, or if I will just pick it up in a couple months when I'm feeling kind of sad and lonely because I'm missing Roland and missing Midworld. So I am going to read The Gunslinger. I just don't know if I'm going to do it in July right after this one, or just, save it for later. One of my friends and favorite authors is Christopher Rocchio, and he recommended a book to me that is written by one of his friends and favorite authors, Tim Powers. This is a terrible, very shabby library copy, and if I enjoy this book even remotely, I'm going to buy a brand new copy so I can support Tim Powers. But I did purchase the audiobook. I do love making sure that authors get my money. I like used books. I buy them because I think it's fun to hunt for them and collect them, and I just kind of get off on a bargain. I love it. But I also want to see authors get paid. So when I find a used book of something I love, I either try to purchase the Kindle version or the audio version so that that author is actually earning a living. That's super important to me. So I bought this, and it is very poor condition, and it belongs nowhere on my shelves. So I'm going to read this, and if I love it, like I hope I do, I'll be buying myself a pretty copy, and I will donate this to someone else who wants to try it, maybe to a women's shelter or a library. But I love this idea of giving books an extra life. And so if it's not something I loved, or if I want to upgrade my copy, I always make sure it gets into the hands of someone I know who will read it, because books are meant to be read. This book itself, though, is called The Stress of Her Regard, and I know very little about it except that it is a vampire book, and Christopher Rocchio recommended it to me. So again, an author that has earned my trust. I love his books, and I think he has great taste, and so he talks about Tim Powers all the time, and I thought, I've got to check one out. So he made this recommendation for me, and I really hope I get to it in July because I'm very interested. And then last but definitely not least on my list of July hopefuls is Jade War. Like I said, Jade City just really impressed me. It was pretty much exactly what I was hoping it would be. I liked it a lot, but I hear that Jade War and Jade Legacy, books 2 and 3, just get better and better as they go. And I am already so invested in these characters and this story that they set up that I am just kind of chomping at the bit to get to this. And if I'm being honest, I already started it and read the first 5 chapters, and it starts off pretty exciting and kind of puts you right back in the story. So I imagine I will be starting this one sooner rather than later. So guys, let me know what's going on with your TBR. Am I reading anything that you will be reading this month? If so, let me know so we can have a conversation about it. But mostly, I just gotta know, what was your favorite, the best book you read in June, and what are you most looking forward to in July? So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your feedback, and I hope you have a great month of reading.